Going live. You are live.
Hello, everybody. This
No,
is
we're not live.
conversation. So Tom, is good?
It says we're live.
Okay, shouldn't we wait till we have viewers to do some kind of introduction? What's doing with that? Anyone watching?
Oh, it's working.
How do we see how many viewers we have? Do we have any?
Oh my gosh, audio! I'm hearing my audio feedback. This is not gonna.
Oh, God damn it, Miles.
Yeah, this is. Hello and welcome to the conversation. We're live today for like the first time, kind of. We're ignoring Monday, of course, but we're here. I'm with my guys Mark, Max, Jake. Tom's doing all the technical stuff. We're here to discuss the convention today, day numero 4. So we got an exciting day of all of these speakers, which speakers, right? Whoever they are. So I mean, yeah. What do you guys like thoughts before getting into the night?
I think I could open up the conversation here. So I watched the last 3 convention nights, and I think we could probably expect a little bit more of the same. I came into this expecting there to be some sort of strategy on the part of the Democrats, really targeting on specific demographics or various groups as we progress through the convention. I think that was true for the first couple of nights, and certainly last night as well. But I feel like there's kind of the impetus is on production value and really offering a show to the prospective voters and really targeting demographics as a kind of from a holistic perspective and really focusing in on getting people to vote. So I don't think it's necessarily been a targeted attack on certain groups like we talked about maybe in the first night. And I think maybe Max can speak to that as well, because he was able to cover this just as much detail as I think I was able to cover it in. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well, but definitely huge contrast to what we had talked about in the first night.
Yeah, I mean, seizing the means, right? So Max, seizing the means.
Well, so I think, Mark's right. There was a very stark contrast the last 2 nights as opposed to the first one. The first one was very heavily anti-Trump, and they were very towards getting like Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad. And the last 2 nights are more like, what are we gonna do about it? Kind of like these are some issues that matter to Joe specifically, and this is what he's going to do about it, and this is who supports him in what he's doing. I think that's really what the focus was on the last 2 nights, and last night was especially powerful with Hillary Clinton saying like, learn from my mistakes, you need an overwhelming majority, not just a small one, and with Obama, who was really trying to get the young voters to turn out as well. So I think the first night and the last 2 nights were very different.
Let's talk about Hillary. Okay. So the thing is, Hillary's saying, okay, learn from your mistakes. But the thing is that she hasn't learned from her mistakes. She has not learned from her mistakes. She thinks she's lost because
she's not running for president.
It's the Russians.
She's not running for president. She's not running for president. It doesn't matter. What she's trying to say is that
is to move forward. It must be the progressive and communist side of America. And that is the thing. Hillary Clinton, she was like, okay, yeah, I was the one who voted for NAFTA. Yeah, totally cool, totally chillax. But guess what? Nobody likes that. And that's why she lost. She refuses to acknowledge that she is part of the status quo and will not change a thing. And that is why she lost. And that is why Joe Biden will lose in 2020.
So Miles, if you saw the speech last night, and I'm going to agree completely with Max, the emphasis
I think was
towards voting, right? There was no talk about her loss in 2020, in 2016, excuse me. I mean, I think if you watched what happened last night, Miles, clearly you haven't. they're warning about the dangers of not voting and what that'll do on our democracy, and specifically, I think that's what makes Obama's speech so powerful, and as well as Clinton, is because we're at a crossroads right now. Either you, Nikki, sorry, my brother's coming in my room here. We're kind of at a crossroads in American history, where if we continue the status quo, as Miles said, but in a different context, if we continue to not vote, we run the risk of having Trump another 4 years. And with how he's been defunding the Postal Service and the various moves he's been making on the sides, you got to wonder how much does this imperil our democracy. So I think it was a really nice touch having Clinton there. She's kind of throwing herself out there as
of course I was just messing around, but
totally.
But so I mean, let's talk about Obama. Okay, so from what I was unable to watch the last night's debate. Convention. Sorry, I watched the first two, so I'm sorry, guys. But apparently, I've heard that Obama had a really awesome speech. He really full send. So the thing is, okay, personally, I guess I'm like I'm like a semi-Obama guy. But Jake, I think Obama, kind of having that scathing remark scathing indictment. There we go. That is the proper word of Trump. Do you think that was a good move? Do you think it was crazy?
I think Obama definitely did. He took 20 minutes and he completely dismantled Trump's presidency. And I think that's the point of the DNC. Mark, you talked about this in the beginning, and I thought that was really interesting that you brought that up, is that it's very much of a show, and especially this year. And it's really the point of the DNC is to get people out to vote. And I like the emphasis that they're putting on that, if you don't like Trump, then get out and vote and mail in early. And, they're playing to the whole problem with the USPS and early voting and voting by mail. And so I do very much appreciate the show that they're putting on, and you can see the effort and the way that they're trying to convey the direness of the situation that we're in. And I think that there is an underlying message of, you may not like Joe Biden, and Miles or anyone here may disagree with that, but I think there is an underlying message. If you may not like Joe Biden, and this is where the first night of Trump sucks, that's where that comes in, of this is why we need to get Trump out of office. And I think that it was good that logical progression of having the first night being, here's why Trump sucks, and then the second night being more policy and what Joe Biden stands for. So I do think they're doing a very good job, and I'm very much looking forward to see what they have to offer in this fourth night.
Yeah. So although that's a great answer, of course. I think also regarding the convention, you guys, I think you had some trouble listening in on Monday, but we had a great conversation by ourselves, and I remember Mark, he commented something. I think it's very, very accurate for when we're talking about this convention, and how I think I agree with him really that this convention, it seems to be very targeted to a suburban kind of audience, the very, like, I guess, never Trumpers, and I find it really interesting that how the DNC, from a strategic point of view, is kind of pandering to I think the never Trumpers, the Republicans side of the party, than the actual left. Whether you think that's a strategically good move, I think you can say yes, no, maybe. But I think it's an interesting observation. The presence of John Kasich and all the other Republicans speaking.
I totally agree with you, Miles, especially on the first night. What I find is interesting, though, and I wonder if this is because they anticipate fewer viewers to come on as the event progresses. Last night was really focused on kind of heartfelt stories, talking about how immigration has been a huge component of America's history, and how a threat to that is a threat to American democracy, a threat to the institutions that we hold dear. And a lot of those stories that I think that they're talking about there aren't really geared at that specific audience. I think they're really there to rally, as Max said, to rally the troops to vote, and as Jake said as well. So that those stories where they're portraying kids being ripped away from their children, and that's kind of parallel with the Obama speech and with the Hillary Clinton speech about how the injustices of the Trump administration, and as well as providing a concrete example of what happens if you don't vote. So very dire warnings that I feel like might not necessarily speak to Republicans because they're very liberal issues. Another one being the impetus on feminism as well, that I don't think Republican voters might be as particularly responsive to. But I think that's a great point, Miles, that you make nonetheless, is that you see that in the nights where you're probably having more viewership is you're really trying to cater towards as many groups as possible. So the strategy element of the DNC has been really interesting to watch unfold.
I of course, I want to hear what Max has to think, but I think, personally, though, I think that, what's kind of crazy about, I think, the American system, American democracy, is how high abstention rates are in America. I think it was like only 40% of the people in America voted the last election. Yeah. And, in other countries, we go to the French school, the lycée français, so it's like, we know the French system pretty well, and it's like a lot of the time the abstention, about like 70% vote in presidential elections there, which is almost 2 times more, percentage-wise, of course. So, how do you think? Do you think it's possible? And if so, how do you think the Democratic Party should approach those 60% of the people in America who are not voting each election? How does the Democratic Party kind of get those voters in November to vote for Uncle Joe?
So I'll take this one. I think so. So as I said, I think in our, I guess, not intentionally private conversation on earlier this week, I think that the thing that they're really also focusing on is the fact that nothing, and they're going, I think, off the point that if we want to get anything done, we need a majority in the Senate, a majority in the House, and a Democratic White House. And so I think that they're gonna, that they have, and they're gonna continue to be like, if you want anything to get done, and if you want this country to be able to move forward, you need to go vote. And that's kind of like how it's been going. And they're like, nothing's getting done, and what's getting done is not advantageous to you as like a common American, I guess. So what's I think is really being the driving force is, if you want actual change in this country, if you want anything to change at all, you need to go and cast your ballot, whether it be Republican or Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
To get stuff.
Also, I think Max
there. Obviously.
Is Max's audio cutting out for you as well, or is
Yes,
it Max, I think we got most of that, but you cut out there for a second.
Still it's okay. It's okay. We'll go on. It's fine. It's we have enough centrists here that go around.
I'd like to add one more thing before you hop on, Miles. I think there's also a logistical perspective that we need to take into account. How I think I'll take the example of India. I think there's a legal mandate that you need a voting station within 2 kilometers of every single citizen of India. And that's 1 billion people. And I think that really speaks to how there's kind of a fundamental difference in the way we approach voting in the United States, and that we don't treat it as we treat it as a fundamental right, but not necessarily something that we should be forced to do, or really there's no societal pressure for us to be doing that. I think if we were able to increase the amount of voting stations, if we were to make voting more accessible, I think we'd probably see increased rates of voting, mainly because we don't make it a national, I can't remember if it's a national holiday, but regardless, a lot of people are working on election day. So from that logistical perspective, it's not, yeah, okay, so it's not a national holiday. So I think there's been talk for us to be able to make it a national holiday so we can increase that participation, which is really important in a democracy, representative democracy like we have. So if maybe making it a national holiday, increasing the amount of voting stations that we have, increased participation, I think will really only do us well in the long term.
Well, that's definitely something that's been a conversation for a while, but unfortunately, I doubt that'll be at all possible for this election. But hence the reason to have, a Democratic White House and then a Democratic majority to kind of get that conversation off of the thought bubbles and into actual legislation, because I think
absolutely
it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I mean, it's a thing that most countries have done. I mean, especially like Australia. You know, I mean, they even got their own election day, and they have like this. You know, at the election day, they'll serve like these hot dogs. So it's like the democracy dogs or whatever you call them. So I don't know. It's a cool. I think maybe like having that in America would be pretty cool. You know, having your own election day, making it an event. So it's like, oh, it's a fun time to go vote, right? I mean, doing your civic duty. So, okay, either way, guys, we have the convention right now, like it's starting right now. So we'll join us back in like 11, I think. We'll see you guys in 11 with some post-convention speech analysis. We're done.
Yeah.